Welcome everyone to ENR 5270. This is a brief overview of soil fertility and the syllabus, the course itself. I'm glad you're here. My name is Steve Coleman. I'm an associate professor and state specialist in soil fertility at Ohio State. I am based in Worcester. And I'll just tell you a little bit about myself real quick. I've been in here in my position since 2014. I am the state specialist, which is an extension name essentially for outreach and extension support in soil fertility across the state. So I kind of have that as a kind of a large part of my position. I mostly have a research and extension position. So I do a lot of on-farm work with growers, try to help with educators at the county level, OSU extension educators, soil and water educators, etc. And then of course I'm teaching this class, soil fertility, and I also co-teach another graduate level class in R. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time and talk to you about the course and just to give you a little bit of overview. You can see my contact information here. I will state off the front that, I get a lot of emails in my position. Really prefer that you email me through Carmen's email system. It's just going to make sure that it doesn't, some things don't get lost in the shuffle. So if you have, this is of course a fully asynchronous online class, but it doesn't mean that I'm not available. I'm not here to help. If you have anything that you want to talk about, if that can be done over email, great. But if you would prefer to set up an appointment via Zoom and have a chat, please do so for any reason, okay? So I'm just gonna scroll here and just talk about the course. So the course by design is intended to provide a very broad overview in terms of principles of soil fertility, plant nutrition, and nutrient management. I primarily work in soils, in agronomic crops and forage crops, but I will bring that bias. So just admittedly, I'll state that up front here. But by design, the course is intended to provide a very good overview, regardless if your career track is more in agricultural systems or agronomy, or if it's more in environmental science, in consulting, whatever it might be, okay? So students, of course, here, the intention is to just expose you to a broad range of issues. We do spend a fair amount of time just because I think it's important, and over the years, students have really kind of gravitated toward this and thinking of, and just expressing and talking about some kind of more contemporary issues. Some of those are Ohio-based, some of those are not specific to Ohio, but broadly applicable across a lot of areas of the country. So in terms of the course outcomes, so I'll leave it to you to kind of read these, but really I'd say that in a general overview, we're trying to come at this that you can walk away from this course that having a number of skills that would be kind of practical or in orientation, but also have a foundation where you understand some of the kind of conceptual factors that govern nutrient cycling and nutrient behavior in soil, okay? So we'll talk broadly, we'll talk about diagnosing nutrient deficiencies, the diagnostic tools that are available and widely used in the field. We'll get into a little bit into fertilizer and lime recommendations, and then we'll talk some about soil health and just kind of thinking about soil fertility, not just from a chemistry perspective, which is very classically defined, and that's really kind of the origin of the field, but thinking of soil fertility as a more broad and comprehensive strategy to improve the health of soil and improve all of the things that we try to manage soil for the betterment of society and for these ecosystem services, okay? So Moving on, textbooks. There's no required textbooks for this course, but Soil Fertility and Fertilizers by John Havlin is an excellent reference. And if you intend to kind of work and have a career in, say, nutrient management, sort of soil fertility, I would really call this a must-have, because it's really, I've looked kind of high and low, far and wide for great resources. This is really the best one that's out there. This other listed for our for plant nutrition, this is more of kind of an applied nutrient management. There's, course technology, there's resources listed, and undoubtedly you've seen these in other courses. Is kind of our boilerplate recommended syllabus here. So we can talk about technology. Really all you need to be able to do for this class is basic computer skills and being able to navigate Carmen. That's of course an essential skill. I assume that most people have had familiarity with that already. For graduate students, this is a 5,000 level class, of course, and so that means that there's upper level undergraduates as well as graduate students. For graduate students, we'll talk about this in a bit here, but you'll need some ability to record and edit video. So, all right, let's talk about grades. So this is what a lot of people are interested in getting. So over time, the grading structure of this course has evolved. I think I'm pretty happy. We haven't really changed this in several years, but it's really again, it's graded a little bit differently if you're an undergrad versus a grad student. So if you're an undergrad, this top table, quizzes are taken usually about every 2 to 3 weeks. You take 6 total. They're each worth 10% of your grade. And then we drop that lowest score. So essentially 5 are scored at 10% for 50% of your grade. Then there's 10 assignments, and assignments, I think are a really nice way to kind of provide some practical application or just reinforce some of the concepts that we've talked about. So here there's 10 assignments. They're each 5%. So they're exactly half of the percentage of of quizzes, but there's twice as many of them. So simply put, it's 50% of your grade is a quiz as an undergrad, and 50% of your grade is these 10 assignments. Okay. For graduate students, it's kind of the same spiel in terms of the requirements, but then there's this added outreach video that is worth 10% of your grade, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So a notable point here is that instead of the assignments being 5% each of your grade, for graduate students, they're 4%. So we can think about this a few different ways. Your assignments will be graded on a 5-point scale, but then we essentially take 80% of that grade, right? So instead of it, in other words, we normalize that for 4% of each, 4 points or 4% each versus 5%. Okay. And it's difficult in Carmen to separate the grad students and the undergrads and then have the grading scheme, perfectly aligned. I'll just say that I've never really been able to have this work in Carmen and have these grades really aligned. So just be cognizant that the grades that you see in Carmen might not perfectly reflect exactly what you're getting. And I will post kind of just a little simple Excel grading calculator just in case people are interested. But I don't really want to overcomplicate this or belabor this discussion, but if you kind of read this paragraph here, it hopefully provides some clarity if there's any confusion, if you're a graduate student, and how your points are actually assessed. Okay. So moving on, again, quizzes, there's 6 quizzes. They'll be every 2 to 3 weeks. Instead of like a midterm and then a final, we kind of keep things short. It just keeps the material a little bit more manageable. I know there's a lot of people, or there's several people in this class that are, working professionals, working online, or working 40 hours a week. So just trying to keep things a little bit more manageable and timely. Quizzes will be timed and typically 20 to 30 minutes. They are considered open book, but they are very much work alone. The expectation is that you will work alone to answer all these questions, okay? And then for makeup quizzes, it's really, whenever an instructor grants a makeup quiz, it really provides an unfair advantage to that student requesting a makeup quiz. So I'm happy, I want to be as flexible as I can, but if you email me the morning of the quiz that's due, or we need some notice, so I understand that life happens, and I'll try to be as flexible as I can, but your failure to remember that a quiz was due is not a good enough reason to schedule a makeup quiz, okay? They're 10% of your grade. Take them seriously. This will all be posted in the Carmen calendar, okay? Here's the current schedule right now for the quizzes and the due dates. Again, this will all be populated. Carmen calendar will be the final calendar. This is to give you an idea. I don't envision this changing, but again, life happens, and sometimes for whatever reason, right, we might think about adjusting some of these dates, okay? And so right now, this is kind of the finalized date, but again, check with Carmen, okay? Assignments. So again, there's 10 of these assignments, and they're worth 50% of your grade as an undergrad, and then 40% as a graduate student. And you can see there's kind of, a lot here. Some of the assignments, it's actually the first one, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit, but in a follow-up lecture, but there's actually 2 due dates. So it's a little bit kind of confusing, but there's just some pieces here. But we'll talk about, we'll have, I'm excited about this. One of the things that we are doing is this year that's a little bit new for me, so you'll have to bear with me. We're gonna be rolling out some discussion boards and trying to just stimulate a little bit of thought process and kind of reactions and discussion amongst you and your classmates. So we'll be pulling a soil sample. I'll be asking you to pull a soil sample, and then we'll be kind of tracking that, or a sample or two, and tracking that information and thinking about that kind of synthetically in relation to the course content, okay? So anyways, you all can read, but here's the breakdown of the assignments. There's a soil sampling assignment, a pH and liming, and nitrogen evaluation, one on P-risk index, thinking through developing hypotheses about what you're expecting to see with your soil test data, PK and evaluation, and kind of playing around with the sulfur tool, again, reflecting on some of your soil test results, manure and organic analysis, and reading some of those tests. And then finally, all students, graduate and undergraduate, will be asked to kind of rank and essentially do a peer evaluation of outreach, these outreach videos that these grad students will be creating. And that will be kind of the last thing that we do to wrap the course up, okay? For grad students, there's, we don't want to save this video to last minute. Let me just talk a teeny bit about it. I know I haven't given you a lot of background here, but we all recognize the importance of the web and conveying information, and videos are just an exceptional way for outreach and education, okay? I mean, the whole class really is based, you'll be watching it via YouTube, and regardless if it's a classroom or if it's working with adults or children or whatever, other team members, collaborators, regardless of where your professional life takes you, the ability to create effective outreach media is essential in some ways, right? Like it's not everyone's going to need to do this, but in some ways, being able to communicate your message, whether you're in academics or in industry or in nonprofits, is really kind of an essential skill. And so this is, kind of an assignment that I think is a really important skill set, and I'd like for people to have. And graduate students that have done this have expressed a lot of appreciation to go through the process. And so what we're looking for is a very succinct, high quality outreach video. And I will provide additional information. I'm just going to cover this briefly here, but we're not talking about just kind of a voiceover PowerPoint for 5 minutes. We're talking about something with several cuts and kind of conveying a sense of the dynamic video that has a good kind of clear, concise message. And so you'll be responsible for the entirety of this, right? Developing a topic and title, kind of thinking through with an abstract, and then providing a bit of a detailed script in terms of what you're going to do. And we just want you thinking about this relatively early. So we'll get your feet wet, and after a few weeks, we'll ask you to give some serious thought to this and provide some topics, and we'll deal with that at that time. Okay. So moving on with grading, it's a standard OSU scale. There's nothing new about this. I do say, I'm often not in my office. I travel a lot, in non-COVID times. I've got kind of a rock and roll professional lifestyle, like a lot of instructors at OSU do. And so, sometimes we have a lot of field work going on. Sometimes I'm traveling. Sometimes, there's just life happens. So grading and feedback, generally expect feedback from me within a week, sometimes up to 2 weeks. And then I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can with email, but it will be within a couple of days. Again, emailing me through the Carmen website is the best way to, for me to respond kind of timely and just make sure things don't slip through the cracks if I am out of the office or in the field the day that you email. Okay. There's no formal participation or attendance, but really what we're at the baseline minimum expecting you to log in at least once per week. You will see that all of the videos that we generate are posted on the YouTube channel, but really I recommend Carmen being the kind of the vehicle that you watch everything through. Just all the videos are just embedded in Carmen, but it just provides a little bit better structure in ways that the YouTube playlist does not. So, you're going to be in Carmen, you're a student. So the expectation is that you'll be in the course and kind of taking advantage of the videos and the resources posted. Okay. This, for the vast majority of people, this next section isn't entirely necessary, but I think it's important just to pause and talk about how we treat each other and kind of some expectations, just set some ground rules about being respectful and thoughtful in terms of interacting with me, how I interact with you, and how you interact with your peers in the class. Okay. And so, I'm not a stickler about a lot of things, but, we're all, regardless if you're an undergrad or grad student, we're all training right now to become working professionals. Okay. And so I'm just going to ask that you bring a sense of professionalism to this course, and the assignments and discussion boards and emails, writing in complete sentences, capitalizing, using punctuating, avoiding slang. I don't have overly rigid expectations here, but just keeping things professional, and maintaining a relaxed and open learning environment. Okay. All the things that humans can often be at their worst online in terms of what the things they do and they say. we're all allowed to disagree, right? We celebrate diversity and the different viewpoints, and we understand the strength and value that different perspectives coming to the table bring. And so sarcasm doesn't come good across lines, especially if you don't know the person very well. I'm a very sarcastic person, but I can tell you that these are just kind of basic ground rules. And so let's, of course, keep things supportive and respectful. Okay. Citing your sources, that remains to be said. This is a science STEM class, and citations are critical to bring academic integrity to the process. Okay, we won't be like we just talked about this, but there's no like big term papers and things like that are due for this class. So you don't have to worry about that per se. But if you're making statements in the discussion board over the course of the semester, or if you're making things, in your homework assignments, citations are always appreciated. Okay. Policies for this online course. Okay, so all quizzes should be taken solely by yourself without any external help or communications. And all of your writing assignments and other assignments are also your own original work. And so should not be, this is not a collaborative, really nearly all the assignments, and we'll articulate this on a per assignment basis, but it's a very safe default assumption that most everything in this class is considered individual effort and not group effort. Okay, so we want you to take that very seriously. Here's Ohio State's academic integrity policy, and academic misconduct, of course, isn't tolerated here. I'm just going to scroll through this. So again, I suspect that everyone here has seen this language and read over this in other courses as well. So there are many resources for sexual discrimination or harassment or at Ohio State under this Title IX, and you should be aware of those resources. And then thinking about mental health, this is of course a big topic, and it's very, very important. It's difficult to connect to students in some ways, kind of in this online media, but we just want you to know that people are here and they do care. And if you've got issues and you're struggling, I really would welcome and encourage you to reach out and just let me know what's going on. Again, we strive to be very flexible for this class, and we know that students here are in all kinds of stages, both of their kind of career, but also their life and where they're at in terms of development and relationships and everything else. So suffice it to say that there are resources. Everyone here should consider me somebody that as a resource for mental health if you're having issues and you want to talk about it. Okay. There are again resources for disabilities and for accessibility for course technology. Those are listed again here. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up just by talking a little bit of the course schedule, and I'm going to zoom in out here a little bit just to give people so, a semester is 15 or 16 weeks, typically 15 weeks, depending how you slice it up. And sometimes it might drag on, but it does go quick at the end. I mean, I've always kind of experienced that. And so this week is, I'm just going to go through this relatively quickly. This week is really just an introduction and talking about basics of plant-soil relationships. It's going to be a fair amount of information, but hopefully for most people, most of this is going to be kind of it's just a reiterating background that you've already had as kind of a prerequisite. And I know that some of you probably have taken many soils classes, say 3 or 4 soils classes already. Some people might have taken 1 or even none. So this first week is really designed to kind of get everybody on the same page and just present a kind of a conceptual framework of this interaction between plants and the soil, and soil processes, and how nutrients and energy kind of flow, and what in a very generic or broad way kind of govern that. Okay. We're going to get straight into soil sampling and evaluating soil fertility. And with that, we're going to be talking about you actually pulling a soil sample or two from a field or a garden or a lawn or a forest or a wetland or wherever you really choose. There's some logistical pieces to that, but we'll work through that. And I think that students really enjoyed that. And last year was really the first year of this. And so trying to expand on some of that and just make that a little bit as a way that we can kind of understand and explore some of these conceptual pieces. Okay. So we'll talk about soil acidity and alkalinity. Then weeks 4 and 5, we go into nitrogen. So we spend 2 whole weeks on nitrogen. We could spend 3 or 4, but I fear that I'd bore people to death with that because it's just a lot there. Phosphorus, we spend 2 weeks. Phosphorus is a very large issue in Ohio, and with fresh water and Lake Erie in particular. And so we spend a good bit of time on phosphorus. So that's weeks 6 and 7. Potassium will be the week of fall break. And then we'll move more into these tri-state fertilizer recommendations, which are kind of field crop and forage recommendations for Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, and all of our work to update these just actually last year. This was a comprehensive update. And then in week 10, we'll talk about sulfur, calcium, magnesium, micronutrients. And so we're kind of admittedly cramming a fair amount into week 10. And again, that could be, several weeks in a sense, but from kind of an Ohio context, many of these nutrients aren't ones that we have to worry about actively managing. It's good to know about them, but we don't want to spend terrible amounts of time on them from an Ohio context, at least. Okay, so, but we will provide some background and et cetera. So from week 1 to week 10 is really what I would kind of consider the core concepts of the class. And admittedly, I should have probably said this up front, but admittedly, the course is a little bit top loaded in terms of content, where the first, say, at least 10 weeks is where a lot of that, there's more information thrown at you relative to in the latter half of the semester. Okay. So when we get through week 10, we've kind of covered all of the quote unquote nutrient cycles and talked about, many things at this point, but then we will transition a bit, if you will, in week 11 to talk more about this kind of comprehensive evaluation of fertility. So we talk about soil health assessment, and then thinking about some of these conservation practices like no-till, cover crop rotations, thinking about organic amendments, and some of the pretty innovative manure research that's going on in Ohio, how we can think, what do organic amendments and manures do, compost, et cetera, do to soils, and how they can be managed as valuable nutrients. We'll talk some about variable rate technologies and thinking about all the possibilities that are out there. Admittedly, this variable rate and just kind of this technology piece could be multiple weeks as well. We just don't have time to kind of get through everything. But this is where we're at. And for graduate students, there's other courses that in ag engineering, et cetera, that kind of deal more with some of these precision technologies that, you're, of course, students are welcome to take. But for graduate students, we're also, able to kind of explore additional topics through these and do some research yourself in terms of these graduate outreach videos. So graduate outreach videos will be the week after Thanksgiving, where essentially those will be available for viewing by the entire class that will watch and kind of score. And this is kind of, wrapping up the semester a bit, where there's some, I think, some interesting, this is always kind of a crowd pleaser in terms of just kind of seeing all the different things and how students can get creative in terms of putting these videos together. The last week of December, I just have in the syllabus right now is flex time. I really don't have anything scheduled. I might do some sort of like wrap up video depending on where students are at, or other things, or if there's other classes or topics that you're really interested or want to explore, be happy to do that. But right now, I kind of consider the semesters as 15 weeks, and admittedly this week I'm kind of throwing a lot at you in the first week, so I'm gonna do it up front and then give it, let you kind of not demand all your time at the end of the semester, when I know a lot of other courses are also requiring a lot of work. And so anyways, this is the kind of the course overview. If you have any questions at all, of course, don't hesitate to ask. If you have something in your mind that you haven't seen in here and you'd really like me to cover or think about it, please feel free to email me or start a discussion thread if you like, and we can, see what we can do. Can't make promises about that, but we do cover a lot of ground in this course, and think there's a kind of a lot of value in terms of the broad perspective. But the trade-off with that is that we can't really drill down into everything as much as we might like. So anyways, I'm going to end there. Thanks everyone for your time. Looking forward to the semester. Hope that you are too. And good luck, and I'll be in touch soon.